Now, we tend to have almost a little bit of a rose-coloured and romantic view of reforms that have been achieved. And we have this view that, oh, those reforms were easy, and why can't we do that again? Well, they weren't. The reality is those reforms were hard, and they were bitter, and they were contested. Now, where you need leadership is to push through the opponents of reform and their typical use of what I term the 3Ds. The first thing to do when reform is presented is to bring out the first D, which is to discredit it. This reform won't work. Now, if you think about the reforms we've had in the last 30 years, almost every one of them was supposed to bring Australia to its knees. The Australian economy is more than 10% larger now than it was before the GFC. The UK economy is 4% smaller. So at least 15 times that I can think of in the last 30 years, Australia was supposed to be in a depression because of the reform. It's not. So you need leadership to push through that, to be calm and get through that first phase of saying, no, this reform will actually generate growth. If you win that argument, the opponents of reform bring out their next one, which is to de-scope. If you don't win discredit, you go to de-scope. Well, okay, maybe this reform will work, but let's just bring it down into a small pilot, do it over here, not too big. Again, there needs to be leadership and boldness to say the reform needs to be significant. It needs to push through. If you win that argument, the opponents will come out and say, okay, I accept the reform will be good, I accept that it needs to be this size, let's defer. Not now, because now's never the right time for reform. Okay? Leadership is required to win those battles. If you balk at any of those hurdles, you are taking a short-term and populist approach, and reform will never come. Now, infrastructure is absolutely vital. It is essential as a major driver of productivity. It is not the only driver of productivity, but it is a huge and central driver of productivity. There is a tremendous focus on Australia as an inbound tourist destination. You know, if you look at the potential rise of the middle class in Asia, which gets a lot of focus, and the amount of traffic that will be coming into Australia and the number of visitors that will increase, that represents an enormous opportunity for Australia. But they're not going to come if they spend half their holiday getting through customs, waiting for a taxi and stuck on the eastern distributor. That Australia has a debt problem. We don't have enough. We have a lazy balance sheet. We are a AAA economy. We are the most effective borrowers in the market. And we are having a very immature debate around debt in this economy at the moment. We have a unique window as a AAA nation with strong demand for AAA debt to issue that debt and divert it to productive infrastructure. If we continue to have a debate that suggests that all debt is bad and not a debate on the productive use of debt, we will simply not be able to fund the degree of infrastructure this economy needs to thrive into the future. But there's a wonderful linkage between the superannuation that is going to grow, infrastructure, and how we deal with an ageing population. So the economy is transitioning. One of the ways we can smooth that transition is obviously to begin the development and rollout of comprehensive infrastructure, and then translate that investment infrastructure back into quality fixed income product that goes into a growing superannuation pile that then goes to provide more stable incomes going forward. Now, many of the things I've outlined there do in fact represent significant challenges. That is a long-term investment. During the investment phase, you see much of the cost and little of the benefit. The most tempting thing to do is, of course, to defer that investment. Because in fact, it'll be management teams in the future that will reap the vast benefits and not necessarily endure the cost. But that is a classic case of a short-term solution and not taking a long-term view that you must leave an organisation and a country in better shape than you found it. That's what was behind our reputation agenda. That demonstrated to our staff in the first instance that we were actually serious about trying to build a different relationship of trust and authenticity with our customers. Naturally, at the time, it was widely discredited. What's happened 4 years later is our market share has risen, our customer satisfaction has risen, our staff engagement has risen. It was the right decision, painful in the short term, absolutely right in positioning the organisation for the long term. Because there's one thing you can guarantee. If you go for the short term, you might get the headline tomorrow. but you'd be reviled in the future. If you go for the long term, people understand the commitment and the contribution you made decades into the future. Thank you.